Stop right there! You're fired! Carry your trash and get out! I told them I didn't want a black boy like you in this company.
Look at him now. So this was never about my work.
You're finished.
He is nothing.
In this company, you are nothing.
Are you sure about that?
You think one phone call can save you?
Mr. Lawson, it's me. Fire the CEO.
What?
CEO fired the black intern. Then intern made one call. Fire the CEO. What? Richard Vale's voice echoed through the executive lobby. Malik Carter lowered the phone from his ear, but he didn't answer him. For the first time that morning, the laughter behind Richard disappeared. The male executive who had been mocking Malik slowly straightened his jacket. The woman beside him lowered the folder she had been clutching against her chest. And Richard's furious smile vanished. Because there was something about the way Malik had spoken those 3 words, fire the CEO. That didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like an order. Richard stepped closer. Who exactly do you think you are? Malik calmly picked up his cardboard box. The person you should have asked about before you fired me. Before we continue, if you believe people should never be judged by their position, appearance, or background, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments. Would you have stayed as calm as Malik? Richard laughed again, but this time the laugh was forced. You're trying to scare me? Malik said nothing. The elevator behind them suddenly chimed. Everyone turned. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. He was followed by 2 members of the company's legal department. Richard's face changed immediately. Lawson. The man walked directly past him. He stopped in front of Malik. Mr. Carter. The entire lobby went silent. Richard looked from Lawson to Malik. Mr. Carter? Lawson nodded respectfully. Everything has been activated exactly as you requested. Malik placed his box on the reception desk. Richard shook his head. No. Hold on. Activated what? Malik finally looked at him. The clause. Richard's face tightened. What clause? Lawson opened his briefcase. The controlling ownership clause of Carter Global Holdings. Richard stared at him. Then he laughed. A loud, desperate laugh. That's ridiculous. Carter Global is our parent investment company. Yes, Lawson replied. And? Lawson looked at Malik. Malik answered for him. And my family owns it. Nobody moved. Richard's eyes narrowed. What? 3 months earlier, Malik Carter had walked through the same glass doors wearing the same inexpensive black sweater he was wearing now. Nobody had recognized him. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Malik's grandfather, Elijah Carter, had built Carter Global Holdings from a tiny logistics company into a multi-billion-dollar investment group. Over 40 years, the Carter family bought stakes in manufacturing companies, hotels, technology firms, hospitals, and financial companies across the country. One of those companies was Vale Dynamics. Richard Vale had been running it for 6 years. To the business world, Richard was considered brilliant. He gave polished interviews. He donated money to charities. He appeared on magazine covers. His employees called him Mr. Excellence. But Elijah Carter had learned something a long time ago. A man could smile beautifully in front of cameras and become someone entirely different once the cameras disappeared. Before Elijah retired, he made Malik a strange offer. I want you to inherit my voting shares, he told him. Malik had been shocked. But Grandpa, Dad has been in the company longer than me. His grandfather shook his head. Your father doesn't want this life. You do. Malik looked down at the paperwork. Elijah continued. But before those shares become fully yours, I want you to understand something. What? Never trust the view from the top floor. Malik frowned. His grandfather smiled. If you want to know what kind of company you own, don't ask the executives. Ask the receptionist. Ask the cleaner. Ask the new employee. Ask the person everybody believes has no power. That conversation stayed with Malik. So when Carter Global began receiving anonymous complaints from Vale Dynamics, Malik decided to investigate personally. He refused a private office. He refused an executive introduction. He applied through the company's normal internship program under his full legal name. Nobody bothered connecting Malik Carter to Carter Global. To Richard Vale, he was simply another intern. And that was exactly what Malik needed. During his first week, Malik saw things that never appeared in Richard's quarterly reports. Employees were terrified of making mistakes. Assistants were screamed at in hallways. People were fired without warning. Some employees worked unpaid hours because managers threatened to replace them. But something else bothered Malik even more. The company had different rules depending on who you were. Richard knew which employees came from powerful families. He treated them carefully. He knew which employees had wealthy connections. He invited them to private lunches. But interns, cleaners, junior staff, and people he considered insignificant, Richard barely treated them like human beings. Malik kept quiet. He watched. He took notes. And then he discovered something bigger. One Tuesday evening, Malik was preparing financial documents for a senior manager when he noticed two invoices with identical project numbers. One showed that a supplier had been paid $180,000. The other showed $480,000. Malik thought it was a clerical mistake. He checked another month. Then another. The same supplier appeared again. Different amounts. Same authorization signature. Richard Vale. Malik spent the next 3 nights checking records he legally had access to as part of his assignment. By Friday, he had found nearly $3.7 million in suspicious payments. Malik didn't immediately accuse anyone. Instead, he took the information to his direct supervisor. Her face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "It was in the payment reconciliation files." She quickly closed his laptop. "You need to forget you saw it." Malik stared at her. "Why?" "Because people who ask questions about those invoices don't stay here very long." That was when Malik realized the anonymous complaints sent to Carter Global were not exaggerations. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The following Monday, Malik submitted a formal internal discrepancy report. Within 2 hours, Richard knew about it. And by lunchtime, Malik was standing in Richard's office. Richard threw the report onto his desk. "You wrote this?" "Yes, sir." "You're an intern." "I know." "Then explain to me why an intern is investigating executive transactions." "I wasn't investigating anyone. I found discrepancies while doing the work I was assigned." Richard stared at him. "And you thought you were smart enough to question my signature?" Malik stayed calm. "If there's a reasonable explanation, an audit will clear it." Richard leaned back. "You people always arrive here desperate to prove something." Malik frowned. "You people?" Richard smiled. "You know exactly what I mean." That was the moment Malik understood the problem was even uglier than the financial records. Richard didn't just believe Malik was beneath him professionally. He had already decided what Malik was worth before Malik ever spoke. Malik left the office without arguing. But Richard had made his own decision. He wanted Malik gone before anyone took the report seriously. That was why, the following morning, Richard humiliated him publicly. He didn't call HR privately. He didn't conduct a meeting. He waited until Malik was walking through the executive lobby. Then he fired him in front of everyone. And now those same people were standing completely silent while Lawson removed documents from his briefcase. Richard looked at Malik. "You expect me to believe some intern secretly owns this company?" Malik shook his head. "I never said I own this company." Richard smirked. "Exactly. I own the controlling voting interest in the company that owns this company." Richard's smile disappeared again. Lawson placed a document on the reception desk. "Mr. Carter currently controls 53% of Carter Global Holdings voting shares. Carter Global holds the controlling interest in Vale Dynamics." Richard snatched the document. His eyes moved rapidly across the page. "No." Lawson continued. "Under the acquisition agreement you signed 6 years ago, Carter Global may remove the CEO for gross misconduct, financial irregularities, discriminatory conduct, or actions exposing the company to substantial liability." Richard slowly looked up. "You can't prove any of that." Malik nodded toward his cardboard box. "There's a flash drive under the notebook." Richard froze. The male executive behind him stopped breathing for a moment. Malik noticed. So did Lawson. Malik reached into his box and removed a small black flash drive. 3 months of duplicated invoices, vendor discrepancies, internal emails, unauthorized transfers, and messages instructing managers to bury employee complaints. Richard's face went white. "You stole confidential documents." "No." Malik held up the drive. "I copied records I was authorized to review as part of the financial reconciliation team." Richard pointed at him. "You planned this." "No, Richard." Malik's voice remained quiet. "I came here hoping the complaints were wrong." That hurt Richard more than shouting would have. Malik continued. "I wanted to find out why one of my grandfather's companies had lost 19 experienced employees in 11 months. Richard glanced toward Lawson. "I can explain the invoices." "Good," Lawson said. "You'll have the opportunity." Richard relaxed slightly. "Exactly," Lawson finished. 2 investigators. Richard went silent. The woman in the cream suit suddenly stepped backward. Malik looked at her. Where are you going? She stopped. In nowhere. You were laughing pretty loudly 5 minutes ago. Her eyes dropped. I didn't know who you were. Malik stared at her. That's the problem. She looked up. Malik continued. You shouldn't need to know who someone is before deciding to treat them with dignity. Her face filled with embarrassment. The male executive beside her cleared his throat. Malik, listen, everything got out of hand. Mr. Carter, Lawson corrected. The man swallowed. Mr. Carter, I never had anything personal against you. Malik raised an eyebrow. You just laughed while I was being humiliated. I thought Richard was joking around. You told me I didn't belong here. The executive looked at the floor. Richard suddenly slammed the document onto the desk. This is insane. Everyone turned. You're going to destroy this company because your feelings got hurt? Malik's calm expression finally hardened. My feelings. He walked toward Richard. You think this is about me? Richard said nothing. Malik pointed through the glass wall toward the dozens of employees now watching from their desks. This is about every person you threatened because you thought they couldn't fight back. He pointed toward the elevators. It's about the assistant you fired after she complained about unpaid overtime. Richard's expression changed. It's about the operations manager you pressured to approve invoices he questioned. Richard glanced at Lawson. And it's about the employees who learned that keeping their jobs depended on keeping their mouths shut. You don't understand how leadership works, Richard snapped. Malik stepped closer. No, you don't understand how leadership works. Silence. Malik continued. A title gives you authority. It does not give you the right to humiliate people. Richard looked around. Some of the employees who used to lower their eyes whenever he walked past were now looking directly at him. And for the first time, Richard understood that the room was no longer afraid of him. He pointed at Malik. My attorneys will bury you. Lawson almost smiled. I would strongly recommend that you speak with them before making additional statements. Richard's phone suddenly rang. He looked at the screen. Chairman of the board. Richard didn't answer. It rang again. Then Lawson's phone buzzed. He checked the message. It's done. Richard stared at him. What's done? Lawson turned the screen toward Malik. The emergency board resolution had passed. Malik looked at Richard. Effective immediately, you are removed as Chief Executive Officer of Vale Dynamics. Richard's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Malik continued. Your building access has been suspended. 2 security officers stepped from the elevator. Ironically, they were the same security team Richard had threatened to use against Malik minutes earlier. Richard looked at them. You work for me. One of the officers shook his head. Not anymore, sir. Richard's face burned red. He looked at Malik. You think you won? Malik shook his head. This was never supposed to be a game. Richard grabbed his jacket. As security escorted him toward the elevator, employees began stepping out of their offices. Nobody applauded. Malik had specifically asked Lawson not to turn Richard's removal into a spectacle. He did not want revenge. He wanted accountability. Just before the elevator doors closed, Richard looked back at Malik. You'll regret this. Malik answered quietly. No. You'll finally have time to think about it. The doors closed. The lobby remained silent. Then Malik turned toward the 2 executives who had been laughing at him. Both looked terrified. The woman spoke first. Are we fired too? Malik looked at her for several seconds. No. She blinked. No. You're suspended pending an investigation. The male executive swallowed. And me? Same. He looked almost relieved. Malik wasn't finished. If the investigation shows you participated in financial misconduct, legal will handle it. And if it doesn't? Malik looked him directly in the eye. Then whether you return will depend on whether you understand something you clearly didn't understand this morning. What? People at the bottom of an organization are still people. Neither executive responded. Over the next 6 weeks, Vale Dynamics changed dramatically. An outside forensic accounting firm was hired. The suspicious transactions were traced to shell vendors connected to one of Richard's longtime associates. More than $6 million in questionable payments were identified. The investigation also uncovered dozens of ignored employee complaints. Several managers resigned. Others were removed. But Malik made another decision that surprised everyone. He did not become CEO. The board offered him the position. He refused. I'm 24 years old, he told them. Owning shares doesn't magically make me the most qualified person in the building. Instead, Malik helped appoint Dr. Evelyn Brooks, the company's respected former chief operating officer, who had resigned 2 years earlier after repeatedly clashing with Richard over employee treatment. On Evelyn's first day back, she walked through every department. She spoke with cleaners, receptionists, interns, assistants, engineers, managers, and she asked one question. What would make this a company you're proud to work for? 3 months later, employee turnover had dropped sharply. The anonymous complaint line was moved outside executive control. Pay discrepancies were reviewed. Overtime policies were rewritten. And every intern was given direct access to an independent ethics representative. Malik returned too, but not to the executive floor. One Monday morning, employees saw him sitting at a normal desk in the financial analysis department. The receptionist stared at him. "Mr. Carter, you know you can have an office upstairs, right?" Malik smiled. "I know. So why are you sitting here?" He looked around the room. "Because my grandfather told me never to trust the view from the top floor." She laughed. Malik opened his laptop, and beside his desk sat the same cardboard box Richard had mocked him for carrying. He had kept it deliberately, not because he needed it anymore, but because he never wanted to forget the morning a powerful man looked at his clothes, his position, and the color of his skin, and decided he was nobody. Richard had been wrong, but Malik also understood something even more important. Even if he truly had been nobody important, Richard still would have been wrong. Because dignity should never depend on discovering that the person you're humiliating has power, and respect should never begin only after you learn someone's last name. If you were Malik, would you have fired only the CEO, or would you have fired the 2 executives who laughed at him too? Tell us in the comments. And if this story reminded you that you never truly know who you're looking down on, like the video, share it with someone, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.